This conference will now be recorded.
So the detailed requirement for the recruitment exercise that we have done earlier. Now, if you talk about the uh, recruitment system, one of the purpose we have identified was that the project manager should be able to create the proposal form and submit. The project manager should be able to create the proposal form and submit. So that is the use case. The project manager should be able to create the proposal form and submit. Now, when we talk about this use case, when we talk about that purpose, so that means that we need to develop a system for the sake of project manager to be able to create the proposal form and submit. How that functionality should work. So the other day we have talked about the use case, where the use case has the use case name, actor or the actors, trigger, precondition, postcondition, success scenario, and alternative flows. So we are defining the requirements in the format in such a way that it is so much detailed that the developer can pick it up and start developing the system. The developer can pick it up and start developing the system. Now, if you see here, the requirement name is that the user should be able to create the proposal form and submit. The user should be able to create the proposal form and submit. Who is the user here? The user is obviously who creates the proposal form. Who would be creating the proposal form? Who would be
The
creating
project
it? Yes, the project manager. So actor would be the actor or the actors would be the project manager. So who would be creating the proposal form? What is the triggering point? Trigger is basically any resource requirement for a new hire. Any resource requirement for a new hire that would basically trigger a resource requirement or creating the proposal form. If you don't have a resource requirement, we don't have this thing to creating the proposal form. Doesn't make any sense, right? Any resource requirement for a project or for a new hire in a project, so that would trigger this particular requirement. Precondition. So what should be the prerequisite for us to be able to create the proposal form? What is required? The project manager as a user should have valid credential to log into the respective system. So we are talking about the recruitment system. So the project manager should be having valid credentials to log into the system. The project manager should be having valid credentials to log into the system. Log into the system. And we will not look at the post condition now. We will look at the post condition later on. Now, success scenario. So we remember that success scenario is the main storyline of the use case where we mention the user's action and the system response. We mention the user's action and the system response under the system response under the success scenario. Now, if you look at the step one, the launching of the recruitment application. So user clicks on like www whatever, and the system should launch with home page with the login option. The step two is system response. Now, if you see the first step one, that is user's action. Step two is system response. The step two is the system response. The system should launch with the home page with the login option. Step three, again, user's action. Log into the application with valid credentials. Click on login, enter your credentials, and the system should present all the valid options to the project manager. That's going to be the system response. The system should present all the valid options to the project manager. All the valid options to the project manager. User clicks on create new proposal button. The user would be clicking on create new proposal button. So there would be a button to create the new proposal. The user would click on create new proposal button. So what should happen? The system should open a template with all the valid fields for the proposal form to be created. The system should open a template with all the valid fields for the proposal form to be created. all the valid fields for the proposal form to be created. That is going to be the user's like system response. That means that create new proposal button, the template should open, as simple as that. When you talk about step 7, again the user's action, the project manager as a user should fill in all the details for what they're seeking, like what kind of resource are they looking out for, and submit. What details would they be entering? The project ID, the project name, the project description, experience required, primary skill set, and the secondary skill set. Primary skill set and secondary skill set. So the project manager has to enter all these details, and project duration, they have to put in all the details and submit. That means whatever the form that gets opened, they need to fill in all these fields and submit it. So what will happen after submission? That is mentioned under the post condition. After submitting the proposal form, it should trigger an email to the HR responsible for recruitment activity. So that means that, again, now if you see step 7 is user's action, this is like post condition is like step 8. We are expecting the system to trigger an email to the HR team, which is responsible for recruitment activity. The team which is responsible for a recruitment activity. After submitting the proposal form, it should trigger an email to the HR responsible for recruitment activity. Then alternative flows. So now we talked about the success scenario. Ultimately, if you see, the name of the use case and the post condition should be the outcome. The post condition should be outcome of the name of the use case. The user should be able to create the proposal form and submit. Post condition is after submitting the proposal, it should trigger an email to the HR. So that means that the user is successfully able to submit the proposal, and it should automatically send an email to the HR team. Is that clear? Is it clear so far?
Yes.
Okay. Right. So now moving on to alternative flows. When we talk about the alternative flows. So while obviously submit is only one button. So apart from submit button, if there is any other options we have or any other errors that can. So what do we define under the alternative flows? If there is any network error occurred in between, or if there is any type of error occurred, or if there are any other alternative buttons that you have. So in that case, the behavior should be defined under the alternative flows. For example, if a mandatory field is not filled in step 7 and user tries to submit, and the system should give error message saying that so and so field is mandatory, please fill in the value and submit. Now, for example, if the user is trying to fill in the details without entering all the details in step 7, what all details that you have in step 7? Project ID, project name, simple description of the project, and experience of the candidate required, primary skill set and secondary skill set, and the duration of the project for which we are looking out for. Some of these fields are mandatory. If you are entering the details without entering the mandatory details, if you are trying to submit, then in that case, you'll get an error message saying that so and so field is mandatory. Please fill in the values and submit. Please fill in the values and submit. Is that clear? So,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
okay,
Yes.
cool. If the user clicks on save after entering all the details, that means that the template that gets opened will not only have a submit button. Along with the submit button, for example, there is a save button also. So obviously under success scenario, we are not defining that. Save, what would be the reaction when the user clicks on save? If the user clicks on save after entering all the details, the system should save the file and update the user. The system should save the file and update the user. If the user clicks on reset, the value showing in the proposal form should get reset. If the user clicks on reset, so after entering all the details, there is also a reset button. If you click on reset, what should happen? All the fields should be blank, and the value showing in the proposal form should get reset. Reset in the sense should get cleared out. Okay, so that way whatever the alternative possibilities, so that should be defined under the alternative clause. Apart from the success scenario, whatever are the other possibilities, are any possible errors that could occur, so that would be defined under the alternative clause. Is that clear?
Yes.
Okay, so that's not just it, right? So we are also providing them a table, because we are asking the user to enter the fields, right? The user is the project manager here. We are asking the project manager to enter the details like project ID. That is like in the template that gets opened. You will have the fields like project ID, project name, summary, experience, skill set, secondary, and duration. So the description of each of the fields is project ID is project ID, project name, description, experience required, primary skill set, secondary skill set, and the project duration. These are the details. And what are all the valid values? So that means that each field should be taking valid values only. So here we are defining what valid values it should be accepting. Project ID should be alphanumeric only. It's a mandatory field. Should be greater than 6 and less than 40. So there is a like a size that is defined for this particular field. And project name characters more than 10, and it is a mandatory field. The project name is also a mandatory field. So that's what mentioned in the alternative clause. If there is a mandatory field, without entering the values, if you're trying to submit, then the system should throw the error message saying that so and so field is mandatory, project ID is mandatory, project name is mandatory. Like that, it should throw the error message accordingly. It should be throwing the error message accordingly. Now, when you talk about the screen with which, so this is not it. So along with the table that we are also showing them the screen. This is how the screen should look like, the new proposal screen, where you have the project ID, project name, summary, which are all the mandatory field. That is why you have a star beside that, experience, skill set, secondary skill set, and the duration of the project. And you have a submit button, you have a save button, and reset button. Submit, obviously, after entering all the details, if you submit, if the details are in correct format, obviously the proposal would be submitted and HR would get an email. If you click on save after entering all the details would be getting saved. If you click on reset, all the data should get cleared successfully. That's how it should be working. Okay. So is this clear?
I
Is
have
this
just one.
information? Yeah. Please go
I
ahead.
have one. Yeah. For the save button, so is that required? We have to mention that where the data should save in the in which table or where it should save.
That is again a different requirement, right?
Okay. Okay. Okay.
So this is one requirement, and saving the files and where in which database at which table it is getting saved, that is a different requirement, right? So in
Okay.
that case, when you are saving the file, so you have to mention the respective table names and table fields where the data is getting saved. So that should be mentioned.
Okay.
Okay. Right. So is this information clear? So with this information, will the developer be able to develop a screen with which the user can submit the information, or sorry, submit the proposal form? Is it clear?
Yes.
Yes.
Right. So that's what our responsibility is. For any project, our responsibility is to understand the high level information, are the needs of the customers, are the business owner, and try to convert those needs into the detailed requirements. For that, we will be having the discussions with the team, discussions with the stakeholders, discussions with the business people, trying to understand so how we can detail this information, so what kind of details are needed, etc. Okay, so with regards to this one, now the other day we have identified the list of stakeholders and their purpose of using the system. The list of stakeholders and their purpose of using the system. So I would be sharing with you an Excel sheet with those details. Again, some of you people have done it and some of you haven't tried it. So what I would do is I would create, so I would be sending you the Excel sheet which has the stakeholders, the name of the stakeholders, and their purpose of using the system. What you need to do is, I want you to pick one purpose for each user, one purpose of using the system for each user, and I want you to create a use case in a similar manner how I presented right now. And is it required you to define the screen? If it is required, you can probably define the screen as well. I mean, you can create the screen and you can put it. Otherwise, you can just put it in a textual format. That should be enough. That should be
So,
enough. So
I'm not getting it. So can you just repeat it? What you need from us?
the other day you have identified the list of stakeholders and their
Yes.
purpose of using the system, right? So you put it in an
Mm-hmm.
Excel format and you have shared with us, and we have discussed that about that one, right?
Yes.
So that one, not sorry, that exercise has like not all the people have done that exercise. Anyway, there are some inconsistencies too. So what I will do is, so the Excel sheet with the project, with the stakeholders, with their purpose of using the system, I'll give it
Mm-hmm.
to you. So that
Okay.
Excel sheet consists of the name of the stakeholders and their purpose of using the system.
Mm-hmm.
What you need to do is pick up one purpose for each user, pick up one purpose for each user. So each of those things are one requirement. So pick up that requirement and put it in a use case format in a detailed manner, something like this. In a detailed manner, something like this. In this particular format, for example, the HR should be able to post the job internally. That is one purpose. Now here, the requirement that we are handling here is the use case requirement, or the name is the user should be able to submit the post the job internally. The actor would be the HR personnel. Like that, you have to create a detailed requirement for the HR, detailed requirement for the interview panel, detailed requirement for the employee, detailed requirement for the external candidate, detailed requirement for the recruitment agency, and detailed requirement one for the project manager. Pick up one purpose for each user and create in this particular format. Is that clear?
Yes, Kiran, but will you be forwarding the this use case sample also
Yeah.
to us?
Yeah. So I will forward the use case sample. I will forward the spreadsheet. So you should be creating in the similar format, looking at the spreadsheet for each of the users, the purpose. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Kiran, I just have a small question. You will send me that Excel spreadsheet. I mean, you'll send us to that Excel spreadsheet, right? So you'll
Mm-hmm.
have number of actors. So you should be right. Just one. We have to pick up only one, or like we are supposed to write for each and every stakeholder that
Each and
proposes.
every stakeholder, you have to pick up one purpose. For employee, you should pick up one purpose and create the use case like this.
So
For
for one.
HR, you pick up one purpose. Yeah. So for each stakeholder, you pick up one purpose and define in the detailed form like this.
Okay. So each one will be having each use case, right?
Yeah, each one will be having one use case. Each user, we are trying to cover each of the user, and each of the user will be writing one use case for each of the users.
I mean, like suppose. Okay, yeah, I got it. Yeah, yeah.
So
Okay.
don't just create for HR, don't just create for project manager. You have to handle all the stakeholders, and you have to create one use case for each user in this format.
Oh, okay. Now I got it. So actors would be differing for each use
Yeah,
case.
obviously, right? Based on the purpose, the actors would differ, right?
Yeah.
HR does some activities, employee does some other activities on the system, and other people would be using the system differently. Obviously, based on the purpose, your actors would be different.
Okay.
Okay,
Now, yeah, got it. Thank you.
so don't worry about the actors. So obviously, actors would be based on the purpose, but you make sure that, okay, am I covering one purpose of HR, one purpose of project manager? Am I putting it in a detailed requirement format or not? Okay, so
Okay.
that's the ask, right? So one other thing is, under success scenario, there are 4 steps, right? Step 1, step 2, step 3, and step 4. Launch the recruitment application, and the system should launch with the home page with the login option. Log into the application with valid credential, and system should present all the valid options to the project manager. These 4 steps are not required for every use case, because since we are putting it for one user, there is no need to repeat it again. Rather, we can move this one under precondition, saying that the user is already logged in. Who is the user? Obviously, the actor corresponding to that particular use case. So if you're talking about posting the job internally, the actor would be HR. If you put a precondition that user is already logged in, that means HR as a user is already logged into the system. You don't need to repeat step 1 to step 4 again and again and again. You don't need to repeat it, because for one user it is required. So just for how the workflow that should happen. For all the other users, it would be similar. Like you launch the application and log into the application. So that's why you don't need to mention it separately. Is that clear?
Yes, and Kiran, just a question that the number of steps, there can be n number of steps, right?
Yes,
There's no
it
limitation.
can vary. Yeah,
Yeah.
it can vary. But please
Okay.
to remember that. Please to remember that alternative steps should be like user's actions. Step should be system response. First, user would be doing something, and we are defining how the system has to respond for the user's action. How the system has to respond for the user's actions. For example, step 1 is user's action. Step 2 cannot be another user action. Step should be system response. Step 3 again the user's action. Step 4 is system response. That is how it should be alternatively defined. Okay, system user's action, then followed by that you have a system response. So all that as a BA we are defining the system responses. As I mentioned the other day, as a BA we are define how the system has to respond if the user acts on the system, like similarly like this. And ultimately the purpose should be like whatever the name of the use case or the objective of the use case, that should get solved. The objective of the use case should be, the purpose should be solved. Is that clear?
Yes.
Okay.
One
All
last
right.
question I have.
Mm-hmm.
So here in this case, we are taking an example of hiring a new candidate. So the exercise what you are giving us is also be relating to the same example, like hiring a new candidate. Is that the example, or do we have to pick up something for ourselves?
No, 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 no. So the other day we talked about the flow chart. If you are there in the session, or if we
I
talked
was
about
not
the
attending the class, I guess.
okay. So we talked about the recruitment flow in an organization. Like from the time we initiate a resource requirement until we onboard a candidate, what are all the steps that has to go through? This process has to go through. So that's what we
Okay.
discussed in the form of a flow chart. And after that, we identified the need for a system, and for the system to be like for us to do the same activities with the help of the system, how the system should be responding. That's what we identified, and I gave an exercise also earlier to identify the list of people who would be using that system, and what is the purpose for which they would be using the system. So one of
Okay.
the stakeholders out there is the project manager. They would be using the system for creating the proposal form and submit. For
Yes.
creating the proposal form and submit. So the same one is addressed here. Like that, the project manager will be doing a number of activities on the system. Similarly, HR would be doing a number of activities. The employees in the organization also use that recruitment system. So we have identified those things already, and like I have asked people to do an exercise on the same, and we discussed that as well. And
Okay.
in continuation with it, so now I am asking them to put the requirements in a detailed format, in a use case format, as presented out here.
Okay. Got it.
Okay, so this is a continuation exercise.
Okay.
Right. So you can probably ask them this thing so that they would be providing the recording. That's where like it would be clear for you.
Sure.
Okay. All right. So
Uh,
let me. Yeah,
uh,
please.
yeah. Actually, I have a suggestion. It's more like a request. It will be great that we get the recordings of the class the very next day because I only got the.
Ideally, that should be the case. So ideally, that should be the case. But then, this being a larger public we have, so this not in my hand at this point of time. You please talk to the coordinators one, so that
Yeah,
they will
I have
be like they'll be
contacted.
yeah. So you please better deal this one with the coordinator. So it's there. I mean, now they are the ones who are handling that part. So I'm not sure how it is working. Ideally, I expect the recording should be like received by the students. Then the next moment, if not, maybe next 1 hour or 2 hours, at least by the end of the day. So you should be getting your recording. So that you will you will at least go through it once and come back to the next session. So knowing what was discussed in the last session
Yeah,
and
that
having
was
some understanding of it. So that's what I also informed them, but they seems to have some constraints. So please talk to them. So I'm not the right person at least. So please talk to them, and the recordings are already there. The recordings are getting saved. So please check with them. And yeah, I hope that will not be any issue sending the recordings for all of the sessions that happened so far.
okay. Good. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so now we are going to talk about the non-functional requirements. Can all of you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so this session we would be talking about introduction to non-functional requirements and the differences between the functional and non-functional requirements and need for non-functional requirement. How to capture the measurable non-functional requirements. How to capture the measurable non-functional requirements. We'll be discussing about it. So when we talk about the non-functional requirements for a system, so we'll talk about the functionalities, right? So functionalities, functional requirement define what a system supposed to be doing, what a system supposed to be, what are the things that the system supposed to be doing. So that is defined under the functional requirements. That is defined under the functional requirement. So what are all the functionalities the system supposed to do? The system supposed to help the user in raising the help desk ticket. The system should be helping the user in booking the tickets. The system should be helpful for the user in canceling the ticket. The system should be helpful for checking the status of the transaction, like that. So what a system supposed to be doing? So that all defines the functional requirements. While we talk about the non-functional requirement, which define how a system supposed to be doing, how fast, how reliable, how user friendly the system should be. How fast? The question starts with how. So how fast, how reliable, how user friendly, how secure the systems are. So those things we would be calling as the non-functional requirements. Define how the system supposed to be working. Non-functional requirements are the qualities of the resulting system. The functionalities are the features of the system for which we develop the system. So the system is developed for the sake of functionalities, but the functionalities alone is not going to serve the purpose, because today is a competitive world, and for any application that you develop, you will be having n number of competing companies or competitors. So for example, if you want to buy a mobile, now how many mobile the companies that you have? And for example, like if you look at the mobile operating system, you have two or three major operating system like Windows, so you have Mac, sorry, you have Apple iOS, and you have like Android. So obviously different operating systems, again competitors. So obviously like when you're choosing, again Android has different versions. Like these things have become too much competitive, and the reason being these are competitive just because of non-functional requirements. Now if you see, if you try to observe or probably do some exercise kind of thing by yourself, that I want to buy a mobile right now, and at this point of time, which mobile would I be buying if given a chance? Ask yourself this question. And what are the reasons for it? Try to list down all your reasons. So definitely I can say that there may be some functionalities, but there are some non-functionalities which will be listed out in your list, which will be part of your list. For example, I say that okay, iOS mobiles are more secure, so that's why I want to buy a iPhone. Or I will say Androids are more user friendly. Sorry, user friendly. I am looking for the user friendliness. So the Androids are much user friendly. Or maybe I want more apps or like performance wise, whatever. But I want to like have the secure transactions. So again, security comes into picture. So security is a not a functional requirement, it's a non-functional requirement. That way, if you list down the things when you are buying a product, so there will be definitely some of the items or some of the your requirement should fall under these non-functional requirements. So has become very very important these days, and going forward also these requirements are going to be very very important. So for example, you develop a like sophisticated application or a mobile, and the other next maybe in few months or like a 6 months time, the Chinese mobile companies will also copy the feature. But when it comes to the non-functional requirement, the security, the user friendliness, so that's again is not very easy to be copied. That's again not easy to be copied. So that's the reason why these non-functional requirements play a different role, are probably more important these days, especially like while a customer is choosing a product. It is not only related to the mobile application, banking software. There are n number of banking software. So the customer question why I should buy your application. There are n number of best applications that I have. Why should I buy yours? And what are the benefits? I mean, in terms of non-functional days, how your system fares compared to other systems. I hear that your system has a lag while doing the transactions. Like that, you'll have a number of questions which are related to more on the non-functional requirements side. So anyway, the non-functional requirements are the qualities of the resulting system, and the business need says that from the business side are the people who are going to give us the requirement. They say that the system should function, the system should perform well, the system can be enhanced or changed easily. The system can be enhanced or changed easily. These are the requirements from the business perspective. So when you translate that into the user concerns, user is the end user of the system, right? So they have their own concerns, right? The business has their own concern, and user who is using the system. For example, I am using a loan, I have my own concerns, or I am using a banking system, I have my own concern. I am using some other system, own concern. So the business says that the system should function. On the other side, you have the user concern. User is more worried about ease of using the application, security of the application, availability of the application. If you are taking a bank account, if you may not be thinking at this point of time to like any bank account we may buy, but the more competition comes into picture, you'll see, hey man, this banking system is not good. It goes down very frequently, so it is better I open an account with a different bank. That's how it would be. So that means that user would be talking about ease of using the application, security is secure, is available, performance, ease of interfacing, ease of connecting with other systems, and easy to change and easy to upgrade. Easy to change and easy to upgrade. User not necessarily people like you and me, which are outsiders for the company. Users could be internal to the organization. For example, a loan generating application or insurance claim process application, which is used by mainly by the insurance company employees. So they obviously Like if the system is not available, not secure enough, obviously that is not the expectation that the people would be having. So obviously when I say users, the user can be anyone. So the user is worried about ease of using, security, availability, performance, ease of interfacing, easy to change, and easy to upgrade. So mapping business concerns with non-functional requirements. If you translate the concerns with the non-functional requirements, and if you translate it, you will arrive at the definition of the non-functional requirement. Ease of using translate into usability or user friendliness or user friendly. Is secure, which talks about the securability or the security of the application. Is available, which talks about the reliability of the system. Performance, which talks about the efficiency. Ease of interfacing, which talks about the interoperability. Ease of change, maintainability, flexibility, portability. Easy to upgrade, which talks about the scalability of the application. Easy to upgrade, which talks about the scalability of the application. So when we translate the user concerns, you would arrive at the definition of the non-functional requirement. So on the right hand side, whatever you have are the non-functional requirements for the system. So now for a moment, what I will do is I have stopped sharing my screen. I will stop sharing my screen. I will just simply ask you, I'll give a requirement and you need to tell me whether it is a functional requirement or not, or whether it is a non-functional requirement. If it is a non-functional requirement, what kind of non-functional requirement is it? What kind of non-functional requirement is it? So you need to define me. You need to define or classify, not define. You need to classify what kind of requirement is it. Okay, so just by listening to the statement. So the system should be logging all the help desk complaint like till the end of the life cycle. So is it a functional requirement or a non-functional requirement?
Functional.
Okay. Any other thoughts?
Functional.
Okay.
Functional.
Others? Okay. So why? Why it is functional?
What
Because
it
it is mandatory. If anybody has
Mm,
any request, that has to be taken into consideration.
no. No. I
No.
mean, then non-functionals are not required. That's what you mean.
Um,
Okay. Any other
This is
thoughts?
mainly
Why it
talking
is not? Mainly
this
talking
is
about
mainly
the.
talking logging function. So this
Okay.
mainly working on the logging of a user. So because
Okay.
of that, I'm thinking it's a function.
Okay.
I
All
think
right.
because
Any
we are
other thoughts?
talking about what system need to do. That's why it's a
Yes.
functional one.
Okay. Okay. Cool. So the reason being why it is functional, yes, it is functional requirement because there is a workflow. The moment you log in a help desk ticket, till we close it, so it moves into different stages and it goes to different people. And there is a workflow, like end-to-end workflow. So from the time we log in a issue till the time it gets closed, it passes through different stages and gets closed. And like the system would be supporting all this workflow. So something has to do with the workflow. So that requirement is a functional requirement, straightforward functional requirement. If something has to do with that, means that in the system you are doing n number of activities to get the things completed, or the purpose solved. So in that case, that is a functional requirement. So that means that we log in the issue in the system, we assign to someone, it goes to the someone, they will look into it, they try to reproduce it, they try to work on it, like whatever. So this is a workflow. That workflow is feasible, or the workflow is possible by using the system. That is where it is a functional requirement. Now another requirement I'm going to say, an online help system is required. An online help system or probably help document is
non-functional, I guess.
It's also
okay.
Yeah,
functional.
because
Others?
it's a
Mm-hmm.
non-functional because we are about to say how it is working, the online thing.
Okay.
I think it's a functional requirement.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Can
So
you
why
please
do we
repeat,
need online help?
Kiran? I
And
couldn't hear it.
yeah, and an online help system is required. The requirement says that an online help is needed for this particular system, whatever that we are developing. An online help should be there. Like for example, we are stuck with a Windows, Microsoft Word, or sorry, Microsoft Word or Microsoft Excel, or so that's where you click on help, right? So you get an online help, right? So you have a question, you can put that question in, you will see the respective, the related answers, right? So that is online help, right? So similar, that requirement says that an online help system is needed. That means online help is required. So is it a
But it
functional requirement?
depends. But it depends on the project. But like for the example what you gave, it is mandatory. But for some other project, it might not be mandate
It is not
in the
mandatory.
sense.
Okay, so it is
Yeah.
not mandatory for any application. Just that, like the user says that I need online help for this particular application. That means that whenever the user is stuck, rather than they directly calling the customer support, they can first of all look at the help document and try to resolve the issue by themselves. That is the meaning of it. So is it a
Okay.
functional requirement or non-functional requirement?
I think it is still non-functional requirement.
Okay. All right. So let me explain. So it's a non-functional requirement. The reason being, why do we need online help? So to basically make sure the system is user friendly. The system is user friendly for the user, so that instead of they depending upon the support team, they would be able to do things by themselves. They would be able to resolve the things by themselves easily. And there is a help system in which would be helpful in some of the cases, at least for the users. So that increases, or that probably makes the system is more user friendly. That makes the thing more user friendly. So that's where the requirement is basically a non-functional requirement. Again, under non-functional requirement, it is not straightforward, right? Under non-functional, you have many things: security, reliability, user friendliness, flexibility, adaptability, and then you have interoperability. Everything comes under non-functional requirement. Which category of non-functional requirement is it? It is related to the user friendliness. You are expecting user friendliness of the system. That's why you need an online self system is required. So for the user to be able to like check by themselves if there is they are struck while doing a particular transaction. Okay, so let me tell you the next one, the next requirement. The product will support multiple languages. The product has to support multiple languages. Now, for example, you take your mobile phones, right? So there are mobile phones which has your local language also supported. So that's the kind of requirement is it? It is. So what kind of requirement is it? Is it a functional one or non-functional one? And so what it is related to?
Non-functional.
Okay.
Non-functional?
So what
Non-functional.
what category of non-functional requirement is it?
User friendly.
Yeah.
I'm
Yes,
guessing.
user friendliness. Yes. So you are expecting user friendliness for the application. That is why the user wanted the system to have multiple language support. So that if you have the support of local language, people would be very easily acquainted with the application, and you can get more business out of it. So the next one, the system will run 7 days a week and 24 hours a day. That means the system should be up and running 24/7. That's the requirement.
Functional.
It's again non-functional.
Non-functional. Non-functional.
Non-functional.
Why it is
Flexibility.
non-functional? Okay.
Because it is talking about the performance of the system.
Oh. So the performance talks more on the efficiency line, how fast, how reliable how fast the systems are. So when we say performance, it talks about the efficiency of the application. That's a
Yeah.
slightly a different thing. Okay. So non-functional, many people have said non-functional. Yes, it is non-functional. So what kind of non-functional requirement is it? Now I want the category.
Flexibility?
No.
Availability.
No. Okay.
Efficiency.
Availability. Yes, yes. Someone said
Um,
availability. Yes.
Available.
So it talks about the availability of the application. Our availability also have different name, that is called as the reliability of the application. So You are trying to do a banking transaction, an urgent one. You are actually trying to transfer funds to your friend, and all of a sudden the system goes down. So how inconvenient you feel. So if you are happy, if you like get into that situation, so that means the system is not available, not reliable, not reliable. So it goes up and down. Not sure when the system will be up and when it is down. So that's why like 24/7 or 365 days we'll have a support, or a system will run 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. So it's a reliability or availability requirement. So that's also an important thing. That's also an important thing for the systems. It's related to the reliability of the application. Okay, so these non-functional requirements have become very, very important these days in the competitive market. Is that clear, or any questions so far, anything?
No.
Okay, right. So with this, I will stop here for today, because there are like things like how to document measurable non-functional requirement. That's what we are going to discuss in next 8 to 10 minutes. It is not possible to be completed. So we will discuss about these non-functional requirements in later session. Sorry, next session, tomorrow session. I just want to like a small exercise kind of thing. You, I will not be reviewing it at least, but you yourself like choose the one of the systems that you use regularly and ask yourself, like, and for example, if you are using a banking system for HSBC, for example, you may be using ticket booking system, or for example, we are using online shopping portals, right? So for buying online sorry, products online, so obviously there will be a number of such websites. You try to compare why I am using this particular website all the time. Say out of like you purchased like 20 items in the past, like maybe 1 year or 2 years. So how many items I purchased from this website? How many items from the other website? So apart from like offers and discounts, are there any other things that are making me like using this particular website? So ask yourself this question. And since you are comparing two websites or two online shopping portals, you try to list down what are the differentiating factors. Try to list down. See, obviously, like all the both the systems would be having same functionalities, right? When you say online shopping portal, you'll be able to search for the product, you'll be able to add the product to the shopping cart, you'll be able to buy the products online, you'll be able to cancel the transactions, return the product. All these things are common, right? The functionalities are common. But apart from the things, there will be some other factors which are making you more attracted towards one particular application, and are your purchases or whatever like you are comfortable doing in one particular system, and you try to list down those things and as requirements. So what attracted you, or what things are the differentiating factors by which you are by so those reasons you are using that particular application. List down those things and try to put it in requirement format rather than simple. Put it in requirement formats and see how many of those things are non-functional requirements and say, okay, is it clear?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, all right. So with that, I'm going to stop here for today. So we'll discuss about the non-functional requirement, how to document the measurable non-functional requirement. We'll have a discussion tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks. Bye bye.